first we'll tell you a bit about Epiphan. I know many of you guys probably already have Pearls, you're already familiar with Epiphan, but for those of you who are meeting us for the first time, we'll give you a short history of what Epiphan's all about. So, Epiphan is committed to the idea of broadcast without bears. We really believe in making high quality video capture, recording, and streaming available to everyone, no matter whether you're a big institution, whether you're an independent, whether you're big or small. We think video, everybody needs great video, and we're committed to that idea. So how do we do it? We do it by empowering the creative professionals. You need solutions that are trusted, that are intuitive, easy to use, and that are innovative on the leading edge of what technologies are available. All of our Pearl systems are based on the notion of intuitive controls. So we like to say volunteer friendly. Anyone can sit down in front of a Pearl and be able to get rolling easily with a good result.
Absolutely. With automated hands-free workflows too in there. So that's the big thing that Pearl's been used for, is fit into those use cases where you need something that you just walk in and it's already doing its recording based on the schedule.
I love that. And that's how we got started here today, automation. So we'll talk about that as well. What else? Well, here's something we're known for: extreme reliability. We believe that, well, these devices have to be reliable, of course, but what's very common when people use Pearls is that they're running 24/7, 365. And that's why we do immense quality assurance on these devices. They're designed to last. We have people who've had Pearls running, I think, quite literally for years with 24/7 uptime.
Our project manager just ran it, just wanted to see, like, hey, like what is the device that's been looking at like updates, for our firmwares for forever long. And he had one device that was going for like a year and a half, just constantly going. So yeah, and more than that. So.
Not uncommon to keep Pearls running for a very long time. They should be there when you need them, ready to go. The other thing that we have is 24/7 monitoring and alerting. So there's ways that you can be notified if someone unplugs an HDMI cable. You should know about that, and you can be alerted for that if you need to. But just kind of give you some history of Epiphan. We've been around for about 20 years now, and Epiphan, like many companies, we started with the basics by creating video capture cards to be able to, capture different types of video sources. And in fact, early in Epiphan's history, our products were used, and they still are used, on board the International Space Station with little video capture cards like the ones we have on the desk here. But from there, we decided to go deeper and add more features and more functions, and that's when the original Pearl, the first Pearl in 2015 was released. This was all about capturing, streaming, recording, and switching. It was sort of amalgamating many different devices into a single unit. And then in recent years, we've introduced the Epiphan Cloud. And this is a way to manage all of the Pearls in your network. Very common for us to see people who are managing dozens or even hundreds of Pearls. And this is a way that you can, at a glance, understand what's happening on all the Pearls in your network and be able to control them remotely. And then finally, we've been adding a number of tools to our cloud, like Epiphan Connect, which allows you to capture video sources from Zoom and Teams, as well as Epiphan Unify, which is kind of like a Pearl that operates entirely in the cloud. And we can talk about that a little bit more later, but really, I think the focus for today is on the devices themselves. So just to kind of provide a little bit of a summary here of what domains Epiphan is in. We've got hardware products that include the Epiphan Pearl family. We've got the capture cards, which are known as the AVIO line of capture cards, extremely reliable and high quality capture cards. And then on the cloud side, we've got Epiphan Edge, which is for device management, Connect, which is for Zoom and Teams, and Unify, which is for full cloud production. So that's a pretty good summary. One other thing I want to touch on is that everything we do here at Epiphan is about promoting an open ecosystem. We recognize that many people use these Pearl devices like a Swiss Army knife, and they need them to be flexible and interoperable with a number of different control systems, room automation systems, content delivery networks. You need to be able to integrate video conferencing and a number of different streaming protocols. So one of the things that we're always doing is adding firmware updates to these devices so that we can keep them current with the latest protocols, the latest technologies, and the latest integrations.
Absolutely, yeah. Crestron, Extron, QSys, direct integrations with them, and we have a full API in the back that you can essentially build your own control system if you want to, based on our APIs.
So if you want to go deep with setting up these devices, you can, or if you want to just put something down on a table, plug in a couple sources, and get recording right away, you can do that as well. Why don't we just take a quick look in chat. We've got a few more people who have trickled in. We've got James, who says it's rainy. We've had a lot of rain here over the last number of weeks, James.
Yes.
Stay dry, my friend. We've got Sergio from New Jersey, Filippo from Mexico. Buenos dias.
My Spanish is not so great.
And Fareed has questions about remote streaming, limited cellular internet bonding. All very good questions. What I'd recommend, Fareed, throw your questions in the Q&A, because then it makes it easy for us here to come back to them. We will get to the Q&A section of the session as soon as we can, but we do want to give some sort of basic introduction to the devices first. So why don't we get started here, Ryan? We've got a number of Pearls and a number of devices here on the table. Maybe you can start and show us what we have here.
Yeah, we'll start with the little powerful guy first. So the Pearl Nano is our single channel 4K HEVC H.264 encoding device. George, can you flip to the PTZ behind Dan here?
Oh, you want to show the
Yeah, I'll show the back.
the I/O.
Yeah, so you can see the I/O here. Let's get that camera to focus. There we go. So we can see we have two XLR line level. These are +4 dBu inputs. These professional line level inputs. Consumer line level, HDMI in with a pass-through. This is a 4K input, so you can bring a 4K 30 source into here and even pass that through 4K back to something else, maybe another system or a monitor or something like that. 12G SDI, 1 gig network port here. It is PoE+, so that means you can power it off of a 30-watt PoE Plus switch and a programmable HDMI out. Good thing to remember here is the HDMI out on all Pearl devices is essentially the same. All Pearl devices do not have HDMI pass-through, but the HDMI output is programmable, meaning that you can essentially put out whatever you'd like it to be, whether that be an input, a channel, or maybe even a multi-viewer that we have, or you could play out an IP source if you'd like. And then that brings to the point of what IP sources can you bring into a Nano, and that would be SRT or RTSP up to 1080p 60 for IP inputs on a Pearl Nano.
I want to dial in on one of the terms you mentioned a couple times there, Ryan, and you mentioned that this is a single channel device.
Yes.
So maybe we should just, demystify the terminology a little bit.
Yes.
What is a channel?
So a channel is essentially an encoding instance. This is where all your recording, your streaming will occur, where your layout will be, and we'll talk about layouts in a moment as well. And that what that means is that when you want to, say, record a picture-in-picture, anything like that, or a full frame, that is within your channel. Everything, all the magic happens in this device in a channel. And Pearl Nano is a single channel device.
And I'm assuming we've got devices here that support more than just single channel.
Yes.
Maybe we can transition to talking about what you're holding right now.
Yes, so let's go to the Mini next. So the Mini is a 3-channel, 3-input device. And I'll go back to that PTZ there again, George, if you could. So see what we have here. We have a TRS combo jack XLR +4 dBu line level, but you can bring in mic level signals into this guy as well. Has phantom power too, so if you want to conduct like a condenser microphone or anything like that, it will power those things. 3.5 for electric microphones, as well as these just consumer inputs, RCA, same as the Nano. 2 HDMI inputs and 3G SDI. These are 1080p 60 at max, and technically 1920 by 1200. 1 gig network port with HDMI output, same as Nano, meaning is programmable. The USB inputs here, and I didn't talk about that in the Nano here, is that the Nano is just for UAC, so audio. The Pearl Mini and the other Pearl devices are all UVC UAC, which means that you can bring in like a webcam source, things like that, capture card that is plug and play. 12 volt DC here, little power button here as well. And this would be your 3-channel, 3-input device. That means that you could have 3 channels running in here doing ISO recordings, or maybe a program channel.
One of the scenarios that I see all the time is, maybe you have 2 cameras, but you want to do like a picture-in-picture as well, or switch between those. So in the case of a 3-channel device, you could have 1 channel dedicated to ISOs for each of your cameras, and then you could use your 3rd channel for sort of a program where you're mixing graphics and mixing different, those 2 video sources, right, into a layout.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So what is a layout? So a layout here for us is kind of like slides in a slide deck. So if you were to create a slide in a slideshow, that's a customizable video frame that you can,
Here we go. This is a good
like
example of a layout right here.
So you can do kind of the same thing on Pearl devices, except they're with video sources, audio sources, IP sources, even video playback or browser-based sources on Mini, Nexus, and Pearl too. And then you can switch between those things. So that means you can have that, a 3-channel device here that's doing ISO recordings of, say, 2 camera sources, plus doing a mix of all those things in another channel, so 3 simultaneous recordings happening at the same time.
And I guess the benefit there is you get the recording or the stream of your program, like your full presentation, but then you have the recordings of each individual camera. So if you want to go back and do some editing, or if a mistake was made in the program and you want to fix that in post, you've got those assets available as well.
Yep, absolutely.
I want to touch on one other thing with the Pearl Mini here, and maybe we're kind of buried the lead a bit, but the first thing that most people are going to notice is it's got a big 7-inch touchscreen right on top there.
Yep.
So maybe you can tell me a bit about, what is the touchscreen for, and how does it make the device more intuitive?
Yeah, so the touchscreen in this device, and where this is meant to be, is kind of in a space where you might have many people using it, or maybe like in a volunteer situation. So like we've seen the Mini a lot on like a podium, or like at a church or things like that, where you have people coming in and maybe they just want to press, one button on the touchscreen and it starts up their recording and streaming. But you could also do all your switching and everything on here as well. So this is really meant to, be that kind of production box that is, its own little powerhouse in itself that can do everything itself, and you can control it via the tools that are already there without needing like an external control system or anything like that.
Yeah, one of the things that I think we see fairly often with Pearl Mini is that an administrator or an IT or AV professional will set up a device, but do it in such a way that it's set up for volunteers or lower skilled or less technical operators to be able to understand it easily. So things like having just a big start button right on the touch screen that someone can, without needing to understand all of the technology that's happening under the hood, they can walk up and start a recording very easily.
Yep. And that really kind of brings in, I think, to the next device here, which is the Nexus. And this is our new release, coming out. And you're going to notice that it is similar in I/O to the Mini, but this is meant for a completely different type of situation. So this is for when you need a permanent install. So like maybe an lectern, or really geared towards like EDU, courts, things like that, where you need this to be integrated into a system that has external controls or automation, where this is kind of just like set it and forget it. And so we're going to start seeing this a lot in universities, where these are really going into a rack, and then they might be using QSYS or Extron or a Crestron to control these type of devices. And it's really important to note that there is no buttons on this. There's no control, external control on this guy, or control on the box. It is all done via Web UI, or it's going to be done via API or our modules with our integrations, and likely a lot in CMS. So Panopto, Kaltura, Yuja, OpenCast coming out as well. This is going to be following a schedule that those things are set up to do, and that's really the main purpose of it. And go ahead. Please.
Oh, I was just going to mention like a scenario like perhaps a classroom where you don't necessarily want people tinkering with the device or pressing any buttons or making any changes. You just want to install it in the lectern, perhaps, and have it be run remotely and managed remotely by the administrators rather than operated by the users.
Yep. And a cool thing to note here is this guy comes out with a 1 terabyte SSD from the right out of the box. So you don't need to get your own storage for it. It comes with a 1 terabyte SSD right inside of it from when you buy it.
Okay, fantastic. So we've covered Pearl Nano, Pearl Mini, Pearl Nexus. I think we've got one more that we want to touch on here. This is the big boy. And what do you have here, Ryan?
So this is the Pearl 2. So this is our flagship device. George, can you flip over to the PTZ again, please?
Oh. There we go.
There we go. He was saying, put the device down a bit.
There we go. We got it framed up.
So this is our Pearl 2. Now the cool thing here is this comes in a rack mount version as well. And I forgot to mention the Nano actually has a rack kit too. And so you can install 2 Nanos side by side, but that's another case. So the Pearl 2 is really our flagship 6-channel, 6-input device. So pretty much double or more of what the other devices are in Pearl Mini, Pearl Nexus. And so you see we have the +4 dBu inputs in the back for analog audio. This would be for connecting, the connections for your mixing board. RCA, consumer level audio here. 4 HDMIs, 2 of them being 4K capable. So you can ingest 4K signals into this guy, 4 4K signals into a single 4K channel, and 12G SDI too. We have the HDMI output ports here, and these are the exact same as Nano, Mini, Nexus. Programmable, except you have 2 of them. So you could do like a multi-viewer as well as maybe playing out like an input or a channel or something like that. Just to give you more confidence monitoring and also output from the system to somewhere else. We have USB, UAC, UVC connections, 1 gig network port, and a standard power connector there.
So just a ton of I/O capabilities here. And I mean, we're looking just now at the physical I/O of these devices, but all of these Pearl devices also have a capability for network-based inputs as well, I believe, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So, what kind of network-capable inputs can you have on a Pearl?
Yeah, so actually, let's start, we already spoke with Nano in that regard, but let's start at the Mini and Nexus and work our way back up to the Pearl 2 here, just on the IP side. So Mini and Nexus are going to be SRT, RTSP, and NDI-HX, up to 2 1080p 30 ingests. Pearl 2 is going to be 6 at SRT, RTSP, or NDI, or NDI-HX. You can also chroma key on this guy and things like that too. So it really is, that powerful thing that you put in that rack and you just let it workhorse it until, and use it for different use cases and things like that. So,
yeah, one of the things we hear all the time is, someone will implement a Pearl or deploy some Pearls and use it for one thing, but then discover additional capabilities and create new workflows based on features that they didn't even know they needed.
Absolutely.
Because there really is just so much that you can do with these devices.
Yep, absolutely, for sure.
I think we've mostly covered all the devices now. Maybe what we can do is we'll just check back in on chat. I do see a bunch of questions going into chat. If you do have a question, please use the Q&A because it's easier for us to sort of make sure we address everything. But I do see a bunch of good questions coming in, guys, and we thank you for that. We'll come back to Q&A in a moment, but maybe what we can do now is, we've just kind of, in broad terms, covered all of the Pearls, but what we'd like to do is help give some advice for how do you select which Pearl is right for your application. And I also see that George is running a poll question as well. Maybe we can queue up a poll. We've got one of the questions we want to know is what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys are facing with video capture? So click on the poll section there on Crowdcast. Let us know, what challenges are you facing? Why don't we talk about how to select the right Pearl for your application now as well. So how to choose a Pearl system. So I think there's sort of 4 key questions to address here. So number 1 is what inputs do you need? How many sources are you trying to capture? Is it 1, 2, 3 cameras? Are you capturing a laptop for a presentation, kind of like we're doing here now? The number of inputs is going to dictate, you know, which system is best suited for your needs. If you've got lots of inputs, like more than 3, then probably you'll need something like a Pearl 2. If you've just got a single camera, or maybe
a switcher upstream from this, that you could run that into the Nano. It's a good spot for it.
Yeah, Nano would be great for, you know, maybe you're adding this on to an existing system just to take advantage of the streaming and recording functionality, or maybe you're just capturing 2 videos. You can do 2 video sources input on this, right, in a single layout.
Yep.
So, you know, if that's all you need, then a Pearl Nano is perfect. But when you want to be able to do more than 2 inputs, 3 inputs, maybe a Pearl Mini or a Pearl Nexus is a good fit. The other question that we like to ask is, what kind of resolution do you need? Is 1080p your workflow, which I would say in most cases is the case.
Still very, very dominant, I would say. Yep.
But if you do need 4K, then Pearl 2 is a good answer for you, because you've got, you know, multiple 4K inputs there. If you're doing a single 4K input, a Pearl Nano actually has a 4K capability, whereas Pearl Mini and Pearl Nexus are HD boxes, correct?
They are, absolutely.
And then finally, or rather third item, how many outputs do you need? So are you, you know, are you recording ISOs? Are you recording a program or streaming a program? You know, how many channels do you need, really, is the question.
Yeah, and that can be kind of split up in 2 ways too. You can look at like hard line outputs, that would be your HDMI outputs, and then you can also look at it from a streaming standpoint too. Now, with most cases, you're probably going to hit an uplink bottleneck before you hit hardware bottleneck. But each of these devices kind of have recommended numbers of streams you can output from them. So it'd be like, you know, 6 to 10 Pearl Nano, 10 to 20 on Pearl Nexus, Pearl Mini, and maybe like 50 plus on a Pearl 2.
Wow.
So there's a lot of power here, and we can do this multi-streaming. So you don't have to, you know, it's not like one stream per channel. You can stream to 6 different places on one channel if you want to.
If you have the bandwidth.
If you have the bandwidth to do it. The bandwidth is the biggest
I'm
thing.
sure we'll be talking about that more in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Just to flip back here, I guess this is, you know, probably you can go to our website, epiphan.com/compare Pearl systems. Is a good place to find this chart, but this will kind of break down all the capabilities of each device. If you want to get into detail about all the specs for every device, our website is the perfect place for that.
Absolutely.
To sort of, you know, see all the details and all the specs.
Yeah, and if there's any questions at all too, like there's always support at epiphan.com. We have our live chat there as well. There's forums at the bottom of the support pages. So there's always places that you can connect with us to get the answers to your questions. Pre-sales, post-sales, you know, current customers, anything like that.
Okay. I think that kind of covers the base of all the Pearl devices. I want to flip gears now over to the Q&A. This is kind of the fun part, and we're here to stick around and answer all the questions you may have. So I'm flipping over to questions on Crowdcast, and I'm seeing a question here from CME. Any hardware with Dante? So let's talk about Dante for a moment.
Yeah.
So Dante, maybe you can explain what is Dante audio.
So Dante is audio over IP essentially. Dante also has a video section of their type of protocol. Dante audio ingestion is what we're looking into. It's not current, but it's definitely on our radar. You know, something we want to have. So. Yeah.
And one of the things that we do is we have a sort of a roadmap of where we want to go. And when we get more and more requests for certain audio or video protocols, that's when we implement them into our firmware and we build them into our product roadmap. And what I can say is with many of the devices, we've had like, you know, dozens or even hundreds of updates that get pushed out throughout the year that are consistently adding features, improving quality of life. When you request things, we try to find ways to add them onto the device. So although we don't support Dante audio now, I think it's definitely something that we're looking deeply into adding support for because it's becoming a lot more common.
Absolutely.
Okay, great question, CME. Thanks for that. We have a question here from David Wallouse. I support several Nanos and Pearl 2 at multiple different locations. How can we manage all of them remotely without having to drive out there to fix problems? Fantastic question. So maybe that's where we can talk a little bit about our cloud tools with Epiphan Edge. So can you tell us about what is Epiphan Edge and what does it mean in terms of being able to remotely manage devices so you don't have to go on-premise?
Yeah, so Epiphan Edge is a part of Epiphan Cloud, and Epiphan Cloud is our kind of umbrella for our cloud services. Epiphan Edge is our fleet management system. There's a free version and there's a paid version of it. The free version gets you monitoring of all Pearl devices. You can run limited Pearl devices onto that team, and it can be accessed and managed by multiple people with their own passwords and things like that. So you see Dan showing this, this team that we have set up. These are real devices that are running on a rack for a presentation. And you can see all these devices, they can be anywhere in the world. And if you have the premium version, Dan's starting some recordings right now, directly from the UI. And if you have the premium version, you can log directly into this device. So maybe, Jen, you can log into this lecture hall device and you can see.
So right off the top here, so this is maybe in a lecture hall on a campus or in a corporate environment. You can very quickly get some details about your device, see its information, and then you can see which channels you have running on the device. So in this case, it looks like we have a Pearl 2 here in an education setting, and they've got an auditorium with several cameras and video sources. So here we've got it looks like we've got 2 cameras, we have a presentation as well as a program that's sort of mixing all of those sources together. So you get some quick information. You can start a stream or record directly here. You can check your inputs. You can see scheduled events on your device. Now currently we don't have any events running here, but you can also set up some alerts. And when you manage alerts, you can see what things do you want to be notified about by email and also in the device, in the UI here on Epiphan Edge. And then finally, you've got things like presets. So maybe you want to be able to set up some presets for different streaming or recording scenarios. You can do that as well. But then the cool thing is you can actually log into the administrative panel of the device directly from the cloud here. So that's really where I think, and this sort of the answer to your question is, do I have to be on premise to manage these devices? No.
Nope.
You can access all of the controls, all of the functionality using Epiphan Edge. You can log into the administrative panel. Now you do need to have a premium tier account for your device to do that, but a free version of Epiphan Edge will give you access to manage your device, see all of your channels, start and stop recording, start and stop
streaming. Yeah, you can even put in your own RTMP destinations that you can share between devices. So if you had a common destination like your YouTube stream or something like that, you want to maybe stream from one device one day and one device another day, you can share those between devices with just a couple clicks. You don't need to enter any stream keys or anything like that after the fact. So it really is a centralized place to monitor your devices. And we have clients that have 400 plus devices that are on Epiphan Edge, and they're managing them with a few people, and they're able to do that, and it's scalable, right? So
well, you think about a scenario like perhaps a campus where you've got dozens or hundreds of rooms. Just to walk to each of those rooms around a campus could take 20, 30 minutes. An administrator doesn't have time to check every room, check every cable on a device. Oh, a network goes down, I have to go to the room to find it. What's really great with Epiphan Edge is you can, at a glance, oversee your entire network, right? Really saving hundreds of hours for administrators. The other thing that we've heard is that Epiphan Edge is really appreciated to just get a quick view into a room, and not necessarily for managing our devices, but sometimes you just need to see if a classroom is occupied, or sometimes you just need to see what's happening in the auditorium right now, and this kind of becomes like your network to sort of peer into any of your AV deployments across a campus or a building and so forth.
Basically Epiphan Edge helps you when things are mission critical and you need to keep things reliable and make sure that all your devices are running and everything is going as planned. That's where Edge comes in. That's where it helps you to do.
And we can dive more into the details of that later, but let's keep going with the question. Thanks for the question, David. Let's keep things rolling here. I do see a question from Max.
I love this question.
From Max Rossi. Does it support multiple networks connection for better reliability bonding?
Please let me take this one.
Okay, you got it.
So right now, no. However, we are working on USB network adapter compatibility. That means that you'll be able to, to start off Mini, Nexus, and Pearl 2 We're hoping that you'll be able to, connect a USB Ethernet adapter to one of the USB ports and be able to add that dual NIC capability, which means you could have the Pearl on a streaming network and then in your AV network as well. So then it makes it fit better into places where you might want those networks segregated from each other for security reasons. So that's a big thing that's coming out and we're really excited about.
Well, I think that's probably one of the barriers that in a lot of Pro AV deployments, when you're in a building or on premise, you're not always in full control of the network infrastructure of your facility.
Yep.
Right? And the IT guys, you want to be IT friendly,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So if you can have that dual network capability, then you can kind of segregate the secure network from your, you can have your production network for your streaming your program, but you can still have that management network layer to access your devices and administrate them as well.
Yeah, a lot of IT folks don't want that kind of like that public network that can touch the internet. They don't want that on their internal systems, and so that's why it's a very big value add for Pearl devices.
Now that said, in terms of security, we do have a lot of security protocol capabilities on these devices.
Yep, 802.1x LDAP compatibility. You can put the web UI through HTTPS. You can upload CA certificates. We have brute force password protection on all password admin, operator, or viewer. So that means that if something were to try a bunch of times to try to get in, it basically blocks that IP. So then it stops brute force attacks.
Yeah. And I've seen that we have customers who are Pearl users who work in very secure environments, whether that's military or even conferences that are discussing very secure topics where they they don't even want the operator or the AV tech on site to have access to the recordings. Well, you can set up an automatic file transfer where those files never get downloaded off of the device. They go directly to a destination and are automatically removed from the device as well. So
SFTP, CIFS, rsync, you can go to an S3 bucket if you want. We're compatible with all these things. We do have FTP compatibility as well, but we're not seeing that so often anymore. I think SFTP and things like that.
So hopefully that helps answer your question, Max. I think part of the other angle of your question is, people want to be able to bond networks so that they can get more redundancy in their network connection. Now, these are not network bonding devices. We do have several that we recommend, and what we would recommend is find the solution that pairs best for you. Some guys are mobile event teams and they need LTE bonding to be able to stream a graduation ceremony from an outdoor location.
Absolutely.
Very, very common sort of applications where you need to bond networks. And there are, I would say, well-suited purpose-built solutions for those.
Absolutely.
But going beyond that, we provide you the network capabilities to be able to interface with those bonding solutions.
And just a quick add to that, Pearl doesn't really care where it gets its network from. If you can connect a hotspot to it, you can connect a router that's in a Wi-Fi bridge mode. It doesn't matter. So if you have a bonded system that's connected to it, as long as it's providing that internet connection, and you don't need to log into a captive portal or something like that, then it's going to work.
Fareed does have a question about, do we have plans for streaming with limited cellular internet bonding? So I think we kind of just answered that. But I think to sort of touch on your what I suspect your application is, Fareed, is being able to remotely operate a device is definitely a capability of the Pearl family. So, and we see it all the time. We even have one user who operates a podcast studio or a number of podcast studios. And his wife is a diplomat, so he was sent, overseas, and he's still able to administrate and manage his podcast studios from, thousands of miles away, produce content live as needed, and sort of be able to, almost like he's in the room, even though he's half a world away.
Yeah. Absolutely, and one other thing on that, we had a trade show recently in Sweden, and I had to help one of our sales folks set up their Pearl. I just used Epiphan Edge, went in and just configured the entire thing for them when I was in Ottawa here, and I did that just in a couple minutes, right? So it's just the power of that system there.
Yeah, we have one of our friends of Epiphan, Tim Kerbavas. He's producing live events all the time, and interesting story. Recently, he was, I think, on a flight from somewhere. He was flying into Las Vegas for NAB. He was on his flight, and he was able to monitor a live event that he was co-producing from the airplane because he had some limited sort of data right on the plane, and he was able to log into his Edge, and from 30,000 feet in the sky, he's watching what's happening on his Pearl device, which is just, we love hearing those stories. Okay, let's keep moving here. We've got a question from Ken about graphics. Very simple question. Graphics? Question mark. So graphics, yes, we do have graphics capabilities. So within the administrative panel itself, it's almost like a click and drag, almost like a PowerPoint to be able to create your layouts. But with that, we also have some basic graphic controls like, well, here we go. We see George running some graphics here. These are some web-based graphics, so we're bringing those in from another tool over the web. You can also create some basic graphics just in the Pearl itself, so things like titles, images, backgrounds, colors, to create some of the layouts like you've seen on this program.
PNG transparency too.
Here we see another just a name that George, we got it on the wrong side. We'll switch seats.
I'm not Dan, am I?
But that's one of the capabilities is web-based graphics, and we have a number of web-based graphic tools we recommend. We sort of see this as a trend of like where graphics production will be happening is in the web, rather than requiring another computer system. There's some great tools like Uno overlays, like Singular Live,
Flowix.
like Flowix. So, if you want to learn more about these, I would say, check Google for web-based graphics tools, and then Pearl has the input to be able to bring those tools into your layouts and into your programs.
Essentially has a web browser built in. You just pop it in, and when you change stuff on that link that you're looking at, it'll be represented on your on the Pearl. For Mini and Nexus and Pearl too, I should mention. Nano does not have web graphics.
Nano does not support web graphics. This is the baby,
Here's the
right?
baby. Little baby.
So there. Hopefully that answers your question, Ken. Thanks for that. Question here from Mario. Is there a lip sync / audio sync control in Pearl Nano?
Yep.
Great question. And this is, I think, one of the big challenges for on-premise AV is getting the sync right, you know? Because when you have a bunch of different audio and video sources, they're routed in different ways. Maybe you're going through a mixer, maybe your cameras are being split. All those steps in the chain can add little bits of latency, right?
Yep.
So how do you manage when your audio and video aren't arriving at exactly the same time?
Yeah, so every external and even embedded audio will have some amount of delay that you can change on Pearl devices, plus or minus 300 milliseconds. So that means that you could essentially not really speed audio up, but you're bringing audio to different places in the encoding pipeline, or you can slow it down, so kind of delaying that audio. And then so you can match it back up with your inputs. So that's pretty common for like an analog source, because analog audio is always going to be quicker because it's the basic electrical signals going right to the device. A camera as an HDMI output, let's say as an example, is going to have some bit of delay. Usually your brain can't pick it up, but some cameras have a larger delay, like 100, 120 milliseconds, and that's you're going to notice that.
Yeah.
And then so you can sync your audio back up to that. We can also make Pearl into an NTP server as well. So if your camera, like an IP camera, can actually point towards an NTP server, you can look at the Pearl as your time server and then sync to that as well. So that could help keep things kind of synced up too. More so for video, I would say. But,
yeah, fantastic. I noticed that as well, that I've seen some cameras where like the HDMI output on the camera has like, almost 2 frames delay. I've noticed, right?
Yep.
So very easy to rectify that using the tools in Pearl to sort of match those up. And actually on our YouTube channel, we have a test pattern. So if you just type Epiphan AV Sync into YouTube, you'll find our test pattern. You can record it off your laptop screen using a Pearl, and then it will tell you exactly what you need to do to sync up your audio source. So
Absolutely.
That's another cool option there. Okay, moving along, question from Tim Paul. What are the advantages of Epiphan Pearl over a NewTek Tricaster?
Well, there's different models of Tricasters. So I guess it really depends. I mean, you have to look at our Pearl devices. Tricaster is going to be more towards, I believe, like kind of the NDI inputs, things like that. I think we might have some competitive analysis somewhere on our websites, or maybe something we can provide. So maybe we can look at that after the fact. But.
I would just say that, like, these products are kind of in a different category than a Tricaster. A Tricaster is like a broadcast production switcher that has, very wide basis of switching and production capability. With that, you get a lot of complexity. There's definitely, you can't just pick up a Tricaster and hand it off to a junior operator or a volunteer and expect them to be successful. So whereas these devices are designed to be integrated into an AV system or integrated into a room environment and designed to be very operator friendly to get up and running quickly with minimal training, minimal expertise. And then the other thing that you can do with Pearl that is not really a core competency of Tricaster is the automation. So things like automatically recording on a schedule. If you have a room where there's a class happening every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, you can program that into your Pearl and it will automate that process. Or if you want recordings to be transferred to a server automatically or transferred to a USB stick, or just automating that entire workflow end to end, that's what I would say really is going to differentiate Pearl from a Tricaster. Sure. Now that said, there are many times when we see Pearls being paired up with Tricasters, right? So maybe you're doing your big, sports production broadcast with replay systems and, scoreboards and tickers and all these things, and you want to produce that on your Tricaster, but you still need a way to capture your program or to capture some ISOs or to maybe just do that final encoding and stream of your program to multiple destinations. That's where it makes a lot of sense to add something like a Pearl Nano or maybe a Pearl 2, depending on your needs, to add that on to your existing production infrastructure. Very common. So hope that answers your question a bit, Tim. Maybe just one other thing I note is we're in kind of in many cases a different price category as well.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
With a Tricaster versus a Pearl, I think Pearls are much more economical in terms of being able to accomplish many of the things that a Tricaster does.
Yes.
Question here from Filippo Ferlini. Do any of the models have USB out? It's necessary in many projects.
No USB out right now. It's something that's very well requested. Looking into it, that's what I can say right now for sure.
Now, as a workaround, what we do when we need a USB out capability is we can add on something like an AVIO capture card, right? So you could take your output, your HDMI output from one of these devices into a capture card, and then you've got a USB port that can go into any computer system. Right?
It looks like a webcam to a computer. So
So there's your workaround. These AVI capture cards are a premium quality device. Just like all of our devices, extremely reliable. We run them over with cars. We light them on fire. Seriously, just to see if they still work. And this is why NASA uses these on the space station. It needs to be easy and reliable. Another question here from Fareed. Can you use the switcher to bring the program into a PC for Zoom?
Sure. Same answer with the capture card essentially right now, for sure.
So take your switch program into a capture card over to Zoom. Now, we also have our Epiphan Connect tool in our Epiphan Cloud. This tool works with Zoom and Microsoft Teams. And what Epiphan Connect can do, go to our website to learn more about it, but what Epiphan Connect does is it will extract ISOs from individual feeds on Zoom or Teams and then bring them into your Pearl device so that you could record them as ISOs or create a mixed program and do some switching. The other thing you can do is you can push content from a Pearl into a video conference in Teams or Zoom. So you can have that return feed going into a program. So maybe if you have a mixed or switched program, but you need to get that into a Zoom meeting with dozens or hundreds of people, that's a really powerful way to get that highest quality feed into a video conference so that people can see it.
Yep, absolutely. The only other thing we've sometimes seen is you could even split your video before it hits Pearl. This would be your high quality record stream, and then you could split something from behind it, and that can be running to a computer. We've seen that before too.
Zoom and Teams, we see them integrated into a lot of AV setups for hybrid events or event production, very common. So we do support tools to facilitate all of that, and we see it all the time. Question here from Ola Johansson. Graphics take a lot of CPU on my Mini. How do I avoid this? NDI also. Okay, good question. Ola, I'm assuming that you're using the graphics input for web-based graphics on your Mini. And the reason you're concerned with CPU is, each of these devices, like we said, Pearl Mini, 3 channels. As you start adding more and more inputs, channels, graphics, layouts, there is some cost in terms of CPU power on the device, right?
I can talk more about this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So like I said, Pearl has their channels. Pearl Nexus, Pearl Mini is going to be a 3-channel. Each channel does use some compute. So on Pearl Nano, Pearl Mini, Pearl Nexus, that's going to maybe add an extra 9% CPU load or something like that. When you're bringing in those web graphics, it is essentially an IP input. We recommend a maximum of 2 on a Pearl Nexus, Pearl Mini. For web graphics for Pearl Mini and Nexus, we do recommend like names on and off, things like that. Not like a playback of video or like a scrolling text across the screen that's running at a high frame rate. And if you're running 3 channels, then that's going to be a fair bit on the system. But if you're running less channels, you should be able to make that happen.
Yeah, some sort of tips that I could share, Ola, is one thing you can do on your graphics input on your Pearl Mini, you can choose whether that's 1080p, whether that input scales to 1080p or even 720p. So maybe just scale your graphics down from 1080p to 720p. The other thing you can do is you can adjust the frame rate. So rather than having a 30 FPS graphic, you can cut that in half to like 15 FPS. And if you don't have a lot of animation, you might not notice the difference.
Yeah.
The other thing you could do is scale back some of your channels on your device at the same time. So maybe you're running 3 1080p channels on Mini. Try taking one of those channels and scaling it down to 720p, or reduce the load on some of your channels, your bit rates, and you're gonna make more of your CPU capability available to support your graphics as well.
Especially if you're looking at a slideshow and that slideshow isn't changing, you could put that frame rate down to 2 frames per second or something like that. No one's ever going to notice because it's a slideshow, it's a static thing. And then it frees up all this extra room to do other things. So lots of potential there, for sure.
Yeah. The other thing I would just suggest is if you do need, if graphics is a big part of your workflow and you still need those lots of ISOs, lots of more stuff, you could step up from a Mini to something like a Pearl 2 and you're going to get that extra headroom that you need to do more at the same time.
Absolutely.
Right? Thanks, Ola. Okay, question here from Dino Santiago. Pearl output HDMI 1 and HDMI 2 does have delay. Well, we have a knowledgeable user here, so maybe you can explain, Ryan, what the outputs and capabilities, and there are some differences as well with Nano. So
sure. So we'll start with Nano. Nano has that pass-through as well, so that will be a pretty much 0 latency output. It's a hardline splitter, essentially. And then when you get it to the HDMI output, which would be for all devices, there will be some delay there, but you would expect delay off of essentially any HDMI output device. On a Nano, Mini, Nexus, Pearl 2, it depends on the source of the HDMI output. If you're choosing an input directly, that kind of exits the encoding pipeline a little bit sooner. So you're probably around 150 milliseconds of delay. If you're doing a channel encodes about 250 to 300 milliseconds of that. That's where the encoding happens. So you're going to have a 250 millisecond to 300 millisecond delay from the output. And then if you have other things down the line, a capture card's maybe going to add a frame, maybe 15 or 30 milliseconds at max. And then you're going to have processing at the other end too into a computer, things like that. But really the maximum that a Pearl should add is going to be that between 150 milliseconds to 300 milliseconds. It's delayed to the entire signal.
Okay, good answer, and thanks for pointing that out, Dino. We've got another question here from Carl. Where do I get a Broadcast Without Borders t-shirt?
I'll send him mine. Mine's getting a little old. How's that sound?
That's a sweet shirt. Actually, this, you know what I will say with these Epiphan shirts is I don't know how they pick the material, but it's the softest cotton I've ever felt.
It's very
so
nice. It's sometimes I wear it as pajamas, to be honest with you.
When we go to our trade shows, we have the golf shirts that we wear. that are like, Epiphan colors. So we've got like a green one and a pink one.
Yep.
And, that's what we wear on like, the first, second day. By the final day of the trade show, we're all in the Broadcast of the Bears t-shirts because it's like the comfort is super nice.
It is needed.
But thanks, Carl. Maybe we need a merch store.
Maybe we need a merch store. Yeah.
We should think about that. But thanks for noticing, Carl.
Put your face on the shirt.
I don't know if anybody wants that. Okay, another question here from Dino. Pearl 2, user GoPro needs refresh EDID to work again. Once it's turned off, 4K equals additional money. Okay, so there's a couple points to this. So why don't we hit the first point, which is EDID.
Yep.
So what is EDID and how does Pearl manage that?
So EDID is essentially how HDMI and DVI devices talk to each other. So it's like, oh, hey, I can support this. What do you support? I support this. Okay, we're going to send this to each other. We've actually heard of some GoPro devices. I think it's GoPro 7 it's been reported, I think, online and things like that. It can corrupt EDIDs on not our devices only, but other devices too. So we've heard of devices plugged into TVs. It corrupts the EDID on the TV. That TV can no longer capture anything at all, ever again.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and so we don't typically see it, but it's certainly possible with EDID. But if you did have any EDID problems, there is that restore button on all Pearl devices. You can also upload your own EDIDs if you need to. So if you're seeing an EDID that's constantly being corrupted, it could be something to do with the source. It could also be something in the environment. Maybe there's an extender in there and it's sending a voltage that's way too high.
Or a splitter or something.
Something like that, and it's corrupting the EDID. So I would be more concerned about the signal chain. And then also you can test with other sources, see if the same thing happens. If it only happens with one source, the culprit might be that source.
Sure. And then I think kind of the second point of what Dino was pointing out is 4K. So we have two devices here that support 4K, the Nano and the Pearl 2. But that is an upgrade feature on those devices, right?
Yep.
So can you just explain how that works?
Yeah. So I think the idea here is that when you buy this device, this is your 1080p box. Rather than say a year or two down the line, you say, oh, I need 4K. You don't need to go out and buy another device. You just buy a add-on that's at a fraction of the cost of what the device actually is. That gives you more features for the device that you own. So it's the same thing for the Pearl 2. And the price of the 4K is equivalent to the price of the device, essentially. Not equivalent, sorry. It's in some fraction of the device cost is what I mean.
So it's a relatively small upgrade fee to unlock the 4K capability on those two devices. Okay, let's keep it moving here. Question from Filippo. In my projects at universities, each teacher generally starts their classes on platforms such as Zoom, Meet. What I do is use the USB out video output of the entire production that automatically switches the cameras using speaker zones. And I give the teacher a click share, which carries all the audio and video of a switcher like Pearl. And then I use APIs to do the programming.
Cool.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we see that a lot. Like especially in classrooms, they need to have an experience for the people in the room, and also support an experience for people who are joining remotely. You have students who have who maybe they're sick, maybe they are on a different campus, maybe they're an athlete who travels. All kinds of scenarios where you need remote learners to be able to access the classroom. And much like you've developed, Filippo, there's a lot of ways that you can build those solutions, and I think Pearl is very capable in those instances. So
well, I think we mentioned MTSU here. We have a case study with them. It's on YouTube, and what they do is that they have Pearl devices that are linked up with Panopto CMS, but they're also using USB out to a capture card into a Zoom meeting, and so they can bring not just like a single camera in, but their entire production, their switch production if they want to, or like a picture-in-picture or something like that. And then so the remote students, get that interaction with other students that are inside that Zoom meeting, as well as kind of the full feature presentation that's inside that classroom as well.
So there you go. Dino, this is more of a note again than a question, but 4K equals 2 channels only. So he's talking about Pearl 2.
Pearl 2.
So Pearl 2 will support up to 2.
Well, so we suggest 1 4K 30. Can you push a Pearl 2 to 2 4K 30s? Sure. Yes, you can. But we don't recommend, it's not in our recommended a way of doing things. The reason being is that we have these conservative recommendations for all of our products. And we make those, so we make sure you can do everything else possible. So you can be doing chroma keying, you can bring in NDI sources, you can be doing everything the way say it can do. You can push every Pearl beyond those things. You just might start minimalizing the other things that you can do, just like a computer or something like that. If you start running a game at full graphics, and your graphics card could probably do it.
You'll start dropping some frames, right?
Yeah,
Possibly,
so
right?
like you just have to kind of consider this. This is a computing device, and so yeah, you can go over what we recommend, but you might find that you maybe have a little bit of frame loss, like maybe a frame or something like that, or maybe the CPU is running a little bit harder than you would expect otherwise. But yeah.
Now here's a suggestion as a workaround, and we've seen scenarios where people want to record multiple 4K ISOs in a room. Where one example is a podcast studio with 3 cameras. What you could do is, rather than having a single Pearl 2 to capture all those sources, is you could kind of scale out with Pearl Nanos, right? So maybe you dedicate a Pearl Nano to each camera source in that environment, right?
Did we show the rack yet in the slides?
I don't think we have, but maybe I can pull that up. I think I've got it here. Just bear with me for a moment. But we're seeing these types of...
George, can you go to the slides, please?
Here we go. There. So we're seeing, especially for the guys who do events, like on-premise events and lots of breakout rooms, maybe a main stage with a whole bunch of cameras, they will build these grids of nanos, right?
Yeah, it's like a modular system. So like you could bring this rack of nanos in, and then you can go, for today's event, it's going to be 2 nanos, or the next day's event might be 4 nanos. And those are all, if you did the 4K add-on, those are all capable of doing 4K encoding. And so you could do ISO recordings with these devices. That can serve the use case there too, rather than running a single device. Which in a case, having multiple devices does give you a more redundancy in a logical way, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And you can kind of scale. So maybe you've got a production today where you have a bunch of 4K sources you need to capture, but then you want to be able to sort of split off and support 2 different devices for the next event or locations. A little bit more modular and scalable than having all of your channels in a single box.
Absolutely.
Okay, question here from Max again. Does Nano support live transcripts? That's a good question. Okay, Nano doesn't.
Nope.
But there is one Epiphan device that we haven't really mentioned today, and it is known as Epiphan LiveScrypt. And let me pull it up here so that we can get a look at it. Bear with me, and then maybe George, you can show it on screen here. Okay, we got it up. So this is Epiphan LiveScrypt, and this is a device that is specifically designed for capturing transcripts from video.
Yep,
right?
from HDMI, even SDI, XLR, 3.5 millimeter RCA. And so the idea is you can bring in these sources, and it would be a single source at a time. And then you can transcribe those into one of like 30 different languages. The English language has a very good reliability, about like 95%, I believe it is. And it can all be controlled via cloud as well. And so that means that you could have these devices going out different locations, and you can see the transcriptions that are occurring remotely, as well as you can take the HDMI out and put those transcriptions to a display that's running inside a room. There's a QR code that's part of the feature set of LiveScrypt that you could put up, say, on a screen. You can put that out from the HDMI output as well. And so users can walk in and they can scan this QR code with their phone, and everyone's going to have a camera phone now with a QR code thing built into that to their software. You don't need to get an app for that anymore. Every camera has it. And then they can bring up those transcriptions right on their device or tablet, whatever it is.
Almost like a second screen experience, right?
Absolutely. Someone can be at the very back of like an auditorium and be reading the transcripts right off their own device, rather than trying to see a screen at the front.
Yeah, this is very common. We're seeing now with more requirements for accessibility in a lot of auditoriums and venues. They need to be able to support, people who maybe have hearing impairments or need to be able to even things like difficulty with accents and things like that. This is a solution. So check out, if you just go to epiphan.com and search our products, you'll find the LiveScrypt and you can learn more about it there.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a question here from Timothy Duncan. Timothy is wondering, is there QSys control module for Nexus?
Yep.
Yes.
All devices. all Pearl devices have the QSys control module.
Okay, and with that, why don't we just talk about control for a moment with all of these devices and some of the options that you have for control. So
yeah, so
QSys is a room control system, right? And we have a module there. What other room control systems do we support?
So we support Crestron, Extron. You can even use a Stream Deck if you wanted to. Custom applications. One of our applications engineers just built a custom control, essentially with like a Raspberry Pi type system, and he's able to control CMS events with it using all of our API in the back end. And that's all the QSys modules and everything are using too. It's our API. So you can build these things yourself, or
just use the module,
or use the modules
to get up
as
and
they
running
are.
quickly.
Yep. Yeah. So each module kind of has their start, and then you can go from there. If you have a developer like a QSys, Crestron, or Extron developer, they can essentially do whatever they want. The QSys module comes out with a basis of controls, and then you can expand from there. Same with Crestron.
Great. So some easy ways to get started with room control systems, but if you want to go deep, you can do that. One other that I'll mention as well is we recently added an integration with Skarhoy.
Oh yes.
Which is like professional grade control systems for broadcast. Skarhoy, I guess kind of the advantage is that, you know, it's a discrete system that doesn't require any computer or anything. It can talk directly to your Pearl. So lots of ways you can control these. Probably the easiest is, you know, a lot of these devices have buttons right on them, with the exception of Nexus, which is, you know, goes in the rack. But all of these can be easily controlled, you know, using the buttons and using the interface. Even Pearl 2 is a touchscreen as well, even though it's a bit smaller. But yeah, if you want to have more control, you can do it through the web browser. We've got a switcher in the web browser. You can use Epiphan Edge to like start and stop your recordings. And really, there's just like so many options and flexibility for how you control these.
Yep.
Question here from William Gorman. Will there be YouTube Studio support inside Epiphan Cloud in the future? Kind of like OBS YouTube Studio support, where I can create a stream right in Epiphan Cloud.
I think he means logging into YouTube via Epiphan Cloud.
Yeah, to maybe you would enter your login credentials into Epiphan and be able to control your stream. So, short answer is, you know, I don't think that we don't have that right now. If we hear more requests for it, it's something I think we would look at implementing. One thing we do have in Epiphan Edge is you can set up a library of streaming destinations right within the Edge management interface. So you could very quickly select your different stream keys for your different scenarios to pair with your YouTube account and push content to your YouTube stream keys. We don't offer like a login to do that. You would have to manually copy paste your stream key from YouTube Studio into your Pearl, but once you've done that once and set up your stream keys,
share with all your devices.
You've got a really convenient way to stream to any of those keys.
Absolutely, yep, and that's the best way of doing it too. Pop it into Epiphan Edge. It can be shared between all your devices by literally just going drop down, click it. Oh, I want this one. Press start stream.
One of the advantages with that route, and I think which is kind of our philosophy behind, is it's more reliable when we don't have to rely. So YouTube is always changing. Even when the interface looks the same, behind the scenes, the way the integrations they support work, they change. And we don't want to be in a scenario where a user, can't access their studio through Epiphan. So really, we kind of get down to I'd say the bare metal, and we really focus on supporting the stream keys, which is,
it's a standard streaming protocol.
Very standard. It does not require any kind of login credentials with YouTube to do that.
Integration or anything. It's streaming to an endpoint that is created on YouTube. It's a standard protocol, and YouTube's going to be likely coming out with SRT soon too, so you can start using that as well.
Yeah, very exciting. We've been saying SRT a lot. Do we want to explain SRT very quickly?
Sure. Yep.
So what is SRT? Because we've said SRT stream. All of these boxes support SRT.
Yes, they do. So SRT is a secure, reliable transport. And so what that means is it is a UDP type transport, so it's quick, very quick. It has latency control as well as can be encrypted and has packet recovery. And so that means that you can stream over unreliable networks by increasing your latency, and then you could also encrypt that. So you can have end-to-end encryption with a pass key, and as long as the other side has the same pass key, you can have basically like this secure tunnel between two devices, and then that's
amazing.
Yeah.
So when you get down to the application level, what does SRT mean? It means you can send video over public internet with very low latency and very reliable and high quality.
Yeah.
More so than RTMP.
Yes, RTMP is like maybe 5 to even 2 minutes of 5 seconds, sorry, to even sometimes 2 minutes of delay. SRT can be like 80 milliseconds of delay. So, and that's sometimes like, it's very, very good.
And we've seen the applications where maybe you have a multi-location event or you have a remote contributor. So for example, you have that, we have an astronaut joining our event, but he's remote. How do we get him into our production environment? Well, SRT is a great way to bring in those remote video sources. And with Pearls, these will both send and receive SRT.
Encode decode is very important, and which is, I think, very unique in a lot of ways to Pearl devices that they can encode decode at the same time.
Okay, just a couple questions left, and then I think we'll probably wrap things up.
Sure.
But will YouTube and Facebook, this is a question from Brian, and this touches on what we were just saying. Will YouTube and Facebook be accepting SRT streams? So YouTube?
Yes.
Yes, so YouTube is adding SRT support for ingest.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Facebook, I have no idea. RTMP right now. That's all we know about Facebook.
But I think what we will see, and with SRT being an open standard, there's over 400 companies that have partnered in the SRT initiative, and you're going to be seeing more and more devices and content management systems and content delivery networks that support SRT, and we think that's a really good thing.
Absolutely.
So exciting. Okay, and Fareed, another question here. There is recent promotion of IP 2110 protocol. Is that supported?
Not right now, I don't think so. No, yeah.
So what is IP 2110? It's on-premise video transfer network-based codec, right?
Yeah. So not right now, but I think we're always looking into protocols as they're coming out. When AV1 came out, we were looking at that. When HEVC was starting to come into the picture, we looked at that and we decided to go with it, that type of thing. So as these protocols, as these codecs and things come out, we're always looking at them and really analyzing what we want to do, and we want to try to follow the market as much as possible because we want to make sure that people are going to be using these things.
That said, we have seen a number of environments that are basing their facility infrastructure on 2110 to move video around their campus or within their building, but then they're still able to adapt that to physical inputs, like with an SRT simple converter that can take those SMP 2110 protocol sources and convert them into whether it's SDI to bring them into your Pearl device. So there are definitely ways to integrate these devices into your 2110 system and infrastructure. Do we support it right now? No, but this is something that we'll continue to look at into the future.
Yep, absolutely.
So there we go. I think we've rounded out all of our questions, and we've been going for a while now. I don't know if there's anything else we want to cover. Thank you so much. We've had some really great questions from everyone here today. We covered a lot of topics. We've still only scratched the surface on a lot of this, but I hope that we've been able to provide a bunch of information that can help you understand the capabilities and specifications for all these devices.
Absolutely.
So, anything else you want to add, Ryan?
No, this has been great. Questions been awesome. So I'm glad that we can be of service.
So if you want to follow up with us, there's a lot of ways you can reach out. You can always email us, info@epiphan.com. You can also go to our website where you can chat with us directly. Lots of ways to reach us on social media as well. And we'll be doing more events just like this in the future. So stay tuned and we'll look forward to seeing you all again. With that, I think we'll wrap it up. Thanks, Ryan.
Sounds good. Thank you, Dan. It's been my pleasure.
It's been a lot of fun. Okay, thanks everyone. See you again soon.
Take care.